In today's tutorial, we're going to look at how to crochet a scrap yarn granny square. As you can see, I've joined the squares with a single crochet join and I've edged it with a moss stitch border. But today's tutorial is really all about just how we make up these little squares. I've also popped some random little crocheted flowers on some of the squares just to try and balance out the colours. But that's just optional. Now here you can see one of the squares, lots of different colours in here, another one here, so let's begin working up these little squares. To begin our scrap yarn granny square, just choose whichever yarn you prefer to be at the centre of your project. I'm going to choose the purple, so you can either start with a magic loop or circle, or you can begin with a slip knot on your hook and begin with a 4-chain ring, which is what I'm going to start with today. So chain 4, slip stitch into the first chain you made, and then to begin your granny square round 1, chain 3, and then work 2 double crochets into the ring. Most of you probably already know how to make granny squares, but this little technique with the scrap yarn, it's just slightly different as we're going to turn as we work each round, and that will build up the colour just a little bit more rather than the colours just going round and round. So there's the centre. Work another 3 double crochets for our next granny cluster. The 2 chains make your corner for your granny square. I do apologise if you are a complete beginner. So let's just refresh. We've made a 4-chain ring, chain 3 count as our first double crochet, and then we work 2 double crochets into the ring. That forms a granny cluster stitch. Then we work 2 chains for our first corner. We work 3 double crochets for our next granny cluster. Then work 2 chains for our next corner. Work 3 double crochets into the ring, and that forms our next granny cluster. Chain 2, and we complete round 1 with another granny cluster, which is made up of 3 double crochets. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4 granny clusters for round 1, and we have 1, 2, 3 corners. To complete the very last corner, we're going to do a half double crochet into the third of our starting chains, just there. So half double crochet, yarn over, pull through 1, then yarn over and pull through 3, and that brings us to the center of this corner. To begin row or round 2, chain 3, turn, and now we're going to work back this way. So we are only completing a half of our corner now, so work 2 double crochets into the corner, skip over your next granny cluster and work a granny cluster into your next corner. The granny cluster is made up of 3 double crochets, as we said earlier, and then for your corner, chain 2. Now I would like to change colours now. You can change colour wherever you prefer. We're going to use the magic knot technique for changing or bringing in a new colour. So just lay down your work Decide which colour you'd like to use next. I'm going to use this pink. And then we wrap the new yarn, or we tie a knot with our new yarn around the old yarn. So if I zoom in slightly, there we go. Take your new yarn and pass it underneath your old yarn, and then just tie a knot as normal. This is how I tie a knot. I just bring it up together, pinch, then bring that loop or the end of the tail end there, and then pull and tie, pull tight. Now we need to tie our old yarn around the new. I was looking there and I realized I haven't cut the old yarn. We have to cut the old yarn first. So cut the old yarn, pass it under the new yarn, and then tie a knot. Pull it nice and tight. So this is how it's looking. Zoom out slightly. I think we're in too far. There we go. So this is our work here. Grab the yarn that you were using initially. Don't grab the tail end. It must be the yarn attached here to your work, and the new yarn there. And then pull those apart. What that does, it brings the knots actually together, like so. So give them a nice tug apart, and then just trim the knots. Trim the tail ends. I'll get my words out in a minute. You can go as close as you like. If you've tightened up that knot really nicely, it shouldn't be going anywhere. Give it another little tug. Just roll. And now we're ready to work or continue with round 2. So we've already done chain 2 for the corner work. Another 3 double crochets, and you can see we've changed colours nicely just there. Then work over into the next corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2 for your next corner, turn or rotate your work I should say, and then just work another 3 double crochets, skip over your next granny clusters to the next corner, work 3 double crochets, chain 2, work 3 more double crochets, and you may like to change colours again. So just to change colours, we just pop our work down like so, snip the yarn we're working with, bring in our new colour. I think I'll bring in this green now. So once again, just like we did before, wrap your new yarn or pass your new yarn under your old yarn and tie a knot. Then take your old yarn, pass it under your new yarn and tie a knot. Then pull both lengths of yarn, and that will bring the knots together. Then trim the tails as close to the knots as you can safely. Not right up close, just give a tiny little bit of leeway, and then carry on with round 2. So you can see here we have completed this corner. This is where we started. We just did half a corner here, work, 3 double crochets into this corner, don't chain 2 this time, find the third of those building chains that counted as a first double crochet and half double crochet. Then for round 3, chain 3 and turn. Work 2 more double crochets to complete half of this corner, or your first corner on round 3. Now you can see we've got some spaces down the sides of our square. You need to work a granny cluster into each space down the sides of your squares. On round 3 you've only got 1 space, so there's our 3 double crochets, and into our corner we work 3 double crochets, 2 chains and 3 double crochets, or you just say a granny cluster, 2 chains and a granny cluster, rotating the work just to make it easier. Skip over your next granny cluster down the side and granny cluster into the next space. Then if you'd like to change colour again, just lay your work down, have a little think what colour you'd like. I think I might choose this maroon now. So we change, we tie in the colour, the magic knot, exactly as we did before. Snip the yarn, bring our new yarn and pass it under the old yarn, tie a knot. You can then slide that knot further down if you like. And then we take our old yarn, pass it under our new yarn, tie a knot, then pull both strands of yarn to bring those knots together to create our magic knot. Then we trim the knots just like we did before. And then we complete round 3 by working a granny cluster into our next corner, the yarn is splitting a little there. Chain 2 and granny cluster into the same corner. Now don't worry about those little knots if they show. I think it just adds to the charm of the design. And even here where we've got just one random little strand of pink. So here we have our next space. Work another granny cluster. And then a corner. Granny cluster, 2 chains and a granny cluster. Then here we have our space, so we need to work our granny cluster. And we're at our final corner. Half of it's completed already, so we just need to do 1 more granny cluster into that corner and a half double crochet to complete. So we find the third of those chains and work a half double crochet, and that's how it's looking to begin round 4, we chain 3, just like we did on all the other rounds, turn and work the remainder of this half of the corner. So we need 2 double crochets to complete a granny cluster. Now if you look, you can see we've got 2 spaces down each side. So just granny cluster into each of those 2 spaces. So that's 3 double crochets in each space. I'm actually going to change colour now. So once again, I'll bring in a new colour. This time I think I'll bring in yellow. So we snip our yarn, bring in our new colour, pass our new colour underneath our old colour and tie a knot. I'm wasting a little bit of yarn there, there's no need for that. So just pinch it down there, pass it under and tie a knot. Then bring our old yarn, pass it under the new yarn and tie a knot. The wastage only comes from this part of your knot. Right, so grab each end, pull together, and once again snip those tail ends. So there we go. And to complete the next corner, we work, sorry, I went off camera there, 2 granny clusters with 2 chains in between. So double crochet 3 times, chain 2, double crochet 3 times into the corner. Once again down this side we have our 2 spaces. Into those spaces we work a granny cluster, 2, 3 double crochets, and then our 3 double crochets, 2 chains and 3 double crochets in the corner. I think I'll just go a little bit further with this now and change colour a little bit further down. So we're working our granny clusters down the sides now. It's a really easy pattern. There, let's just have a look. This is how it's looking. I think I will change colour. Right. I won't show you this time because you know how to do it now. I've just added in some white, but in the meantime I found that this little tail end here where we started is beginning to annoy me, so I just pulled it to tighten up slightly because we worked over that when we worked our first round. I can't remember if I suggested you work over the tail end as you go, but it does help. And then just weave in however you normally do. I'll just come back on myself there and go underneath a few times is enough, because I find when you do the 4 chain ring it's a little bit more secure than the magic ring. If you do use the magic ring, you do have to weave in and make sure it's secure. Right, so here we go. We'll complete round 4. We've done our corner, 2 spaces down the side, and now we're ready to work our granny cluster. Chain 2, rotate, and then complete the second half of your corner with the remaining granny cluster. This is the last side of round 4. So you can see here, this half of the corner is completed. So we just have to do a granny cluster in each space down the side to get to the corner. If you can see, this yarn is a little finer or thinner than previous yarns. Don't let that worry you. As I say, it's all about using up scrap yarn, and it adds to the charm. If you were to use roving weight yarn, it would be very similar. I do like the change in textures too. I will even use cotton. I'll mix up the fibres. I really don't mind. So now we've got to do I like to go under 2 stitches really at the corner at the end, just to work our half double crochet, and then we chain 3 to begin round 5, turn and work the first half of the corner for round 5. Now we'll have 1, 2, 3 spaces down each side, and into those 3 spaces we work 3 double crochets into each, or short form, we do a granny cluster in each space down the side. And then it's entirely up to you where you change colour. I'm actually going to change colour here. This is how it's looking. This is actually the right side now. So I've added in a new colour. So we'll just continue with our granny cluster in this last space down the side, and then work our corner, which is a granny cluster, 2 chains and a granny cluster. Here we have our next 3 spaces down the side. And we place a granny cluster in each of those, as we said before. Then in your corner, a granny cluster, 2 chains and a granny cluster. And as these granny squares are only 5 rounds in total, when we fasten off, I'll show you, we don't have to worry about fastening off with any fancy invisible joins or anything, because we finish in a corner that will be covered up when we do join our squares together. So that's quite handy, doing it this way. Okay, so let's have a look. Might be an idea it would look better actually to finish here and change. So I'll just join in a new yarn, a different colour, take it back to there. I just had to pull the yarn back a little further, as when I did this magic knot here and I tugged on this fibre. This is yarn, Lion Brand's Ferris wheel, this particular yarn, and if you look at how it's spun, it goes quite fluffy, and when you pull it can tear quite easily. So if I just show you what I mean, there you go. So just be mindful on the type of yarn you're using. On the whole, this technique works really well. It's just this little bit of fibre. You just have to be careful. So we'll continue. The corner, as usual, I've just joined in a grey. Oh, I don't know what happened there. I don't know why I did a chain 2. So we do our granny cluster, 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets. Just had to unravel some yarn there. Right, that completes the corner, and we work our granny clusters into each space down the side. So if you wanted to make your granny squares bigger, you'd just carry on, you'd just end up with the same idea in the corners, but you'd have one more space down each side and each round. After each round you complete. I think I'll just stick with the grey this time. No, I'm changing my mind. Won't be a sec. I've added in a pink just to complete the round. So this is the final round of the granny square. I've stayed with you through the duration of it, just in case you're a beginner and you wanted to just crochet along, or even if you're not a beginner, you fancy just crocheting along. Now we're at the corner. We just work our 3 double crochets into the corner, then work a half double crochet into the third of those building chains, which counted actually as a double crochet. So I tried to go under 2 loops when I make the half double crochet, and then just yarn over, pull through, then snip your yarn. There's a little knot there, so I might as well snip there, and then pull through, give that a nice tug, and then when you come to do your corners, this little area will be hidden anyway, so I'll just weave in over here. Right, so that completes our scrap yarn magic knot granny square. So that really does complete today's tutorial for how to work a granny square using scrap yarn with the magic knot. In the next tutorial, I'll show you how to work a single crochet join to join your squares together, where you don't actually find that this single crochet join leans to one side and looks untidy. So I'll be posting that tutorial over the next day or so, and shortly afterwards I'll do the moss stitch border with the little crab stitch, just a tweak to the crab stitch, which is a reverse single crochet. It's just not your regular reverse single crochet. So those are upcoming tutorials that I hope to sort out over the next few days. So thank you once again for watching. I look forward to seeing you, and have fun working up your little granny squares with scrap yarn. Don't be put off if you feel it's time consuming. Sometimes it's so much fun just enjoying the process. Yes, you do have to join yarn together, but you're in control of colour changes. I really do like these little squares. They really do remind me very much of Moni's take on colour. And because we rotate our work, instead of just going round and round, we get the odd little splash where we have the row doubled up, so you get that effect too. Right, I've waffled on enough today. So once again, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.